Back to meeting order. You roll call, please.
Mr. Butler.
Here.
Ms. Brown. Here. Mr. Helmer.
Yes.
Mr. Island.
Yes.
Mr. Shannon is absent. Webster's here and Mr. McFadden.
Here. Thank you. And if everyone please rise and pledge of allegiance. Yeah, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Thank you. Moving on to the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes? Everybody's happy with how it's written? Yes?
Renee, are you going to add the moratorium? I see that we have the piece of paper. Should that be listed on your agenda or not?
You can add that under if you want to add it as new business, I'm questioning it only because the moratorium is an action by the township board.
Right.
So it's just a discussion item, which I do have listed in D with the bullet point, the lakeshore overlay, but you could add the moratorium.
We can, okay, I understand. So no, that was the only thing, because I didn't see that lakeshore overlay was associated with moratorium. It was kind of, yeah, but no. That's the only question I had.
Does anyone care to make a motion? So moved. All right. Is there a second? All those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Thank you. All right, we'll move on to the minutes from October 15th of 2024. Page 1. Any comments, questions, changes? None. Page 2. Page 3. 4. Hearing none, any motion? Second. All those in favor? Aye. All right.
Thank John Morgan.
Yay!
Okay, then on the public comment, at this point, is there anyone in the audience or on Zoom maybe that would care to speak during the public comment? At this point, anybody say you are? Joe? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you have 3 minutes, and just state your name and your address.
Joe Malacus, 287 Lecture Drive, Saugatuck Township. Andrew was gonna also come back for filling in for him. I was expecting him to be here, but you got here fast on the agenda. Our concern we raised at the township board last week was the moratorium that was proposed for development on the shoreline. And our concern is there were no exceptions for stairways, either repair or new stairways down to Lake Michigan for property owners. The way it's written, if it includes stairways, based on what I'm reading about your intent of this ordinance overlay, it doesn't seem to need to include stairways down the bluff, if that's all we're talking about, is a stairway, whether it's a repair or a new one. You may not realize it, but Lake Michigan water levels have finally hit average a month ago. For 10 years, they've been above average. And a lot of property owners either lost their steps, part of them, all of them, and some property owners have been waiting for a beach to develop on their bluff. So I think it would be an unreasonable hardship to extend this moratorium to prevent our township property owners from either replacing, repairing, or even putting a new set of steps down to Lake Michigan for their access. I don't think I can see any reasons it's necessary unless you folks can somehow convince us that it is. Also, Bill Leffley, who is the president of the Douglas Lakeshore Association, and for those of you that maybe aren't familiar with that, the association is called the Douglas Lakeshore Association, but It includes Douglas shoreline, property owners and township, all the way to the washout and even some beyond the washout.
1
So,
minute,
uh,
1 minute left. Oh, yep, we go.
and so he is, also, in line with our request for an exception for steps, with regard to this moratorium. And at some point, it'd be nice to know where you're at in your ordinance formulation. Have you started some rough drafts yet, or, when can we eventually get a look at some things that you're intending to do there? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Anybody online, Morgan? No?
No, not mine.
Okay. All right, at this point, I'll close public comment. And we can move on to no new business, so move on to old business. Consideration of the final site condominium request, Meadowwoods. Applicant being Rick and Kathy Gillette. Parcel 20-275-000-02. And are you a Naderville?
I am,
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, at this point, if you'd like to tell us a little bit about the projects.
Sure, and you may want to check, I think Rick was gonna try to jump on remotely. I was sitting here thinking he would told me he's actually out in Colorado, with grandbaby, and they've been traveling a lot, over the last several months, so. Just check to see if he might be able to join in. But he asked me to be here, on his behalf, so my name is Chuck Boyd, I'm from Naderville. We were before you, well, however many months ago, sometime early summer, maybe late spring, presenting you with this project. We achieved the preliminary approval for this site condominium that has been in the works for a long time, right? The beginning of this project was about 20 years ago. One single duplex has been in the site these many years. And Rick and Kathy are ready to kind of move forward with this project and finish it out in the fashion you can see in the site plan, which is the site plan amenities, right? So single family homes will be built there on the lots that you see. The plan you see isn't really materially different than what you saw in late spring or late summer, with the exception that one lot has been eliminated, so you see 13 instead of 14, what we had showed. And then, of course, the details that we've added. So we've spent this time over the last several months, basically engineering the plan and obtaining agency approvals, which is the requisite for obtaining final site plan of approval. So we've gone through that process. We've obtained basically all the approvals, some with caveats and a few more things that we'll have to do to clarify with them. But by and large, we have the approvals from all the agencies. We put that work in. We think we have a good product and we're ready to move forward. So hopefully tonight we'll get final approval on our site condominium plan. I can answer any questions for you, but this is the Meadowwoods condominium project.
Renee, anything you want to know?
Yeah, I mean, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, and John White from Naderville. We don't have many issues related to this. There has been a lot of back and forth communication, really great feedback, and the applicant has worked with us quite a bit because there have been some conversations with those adjacent property owners once they saw some of the final plans, which resulted in the applicant removing the one lot and then providing more buffer area around that duplex building. It also enabled them to move the stormwater facilities so that we're kind of clearly outside of the view shed from the rear of those existing buildings. And we did get kind of a written affidavit of approval and sign off from those adjacent property owners as well for this project, so we have that on file. So we have a list of conditions in our recommendation. We have the approvals from the county, from the Drain Commission, from the fire district. The first condition would be, as per our ordinance, that there be a performance guarantee on file with the township for the cost of improvements. Many of the improvements are already done, but we would look to the applicant's engineer, our engineer, to come up with a reasonable amount for that. The standard, or the recommendation number 2 that was in the draft preliminary approval, that access to lot 3 be from Meadowood Lane. That the building architecture, driveway, signage, setbacks all conform to the zoning ordinance. As you know, we have that standard that if we have between 2 and 10 buildings, there must be a minimum of 2 house models in the development. As well as single family dwelling standards. That the master deed and bylaws be reviewed by the township attorney. They were already reviewed and approved, but we just keep this in here as a standard condition. That the septic be inspected and all permits issued, and we do have a copy of that permit from the county for the septic system. That the use be in compliance with all other applicable sections of the ordinance and other local, state, and federal statutes. Any application materials or assertions that the applicant makes in writing in their packets in these meetings become part of the official record. And the final condition is that any other conditions of the reviewing agencies that are in those review letters become part of this approval as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
I didn't, I assume the fire department's good with that.
Yes, we have their approval.
Okay.
Is it because I didn't see that in the document, so.
Chris just resent a copy of it. I'm happy to print it for you.
No, so as you looked at it, it's fine, but when we do have a copy of it,
We do.
okay.
We do. He apologized. He sent an email. I think it said it was either in his outbox and then it's been sent, but we have. Okay.
I only had one question that and that might be because, you know, I didn't have my magnifying glass. That lot 13, that you now have expanded, so 14, so that one big lot, so I would have to buy that entire lot. If I were going to buy into this project, I would buy that from what lot line out to the road, I would buy that entire
Yeah,
lot.
that's one lot.
Okay, and I would have the, if I understand correctly, then I have the option to choose one of two different places on that lot.
Yeah, we indicated it on there. Really,
Yes.
it's really wherever you can meet the setbacks, right? What we
Right.
found is there are 2 paths on that lot that the option of build. It's not as though you can build 2 homes on one lot. We didn't indicate that. It's either or.
Okay.
But either one of them, location you see, we think meets the setback standard.
Yeah, that's what I understood, I just wanted to clear, and I, as an individual, would I be able to put an accessory building on that lot? All right,
Yes, sure. You can,
any of these lots, right?
any of these lots.
Okay. Okay.
Is that lot number 10? There's no dimension of the roadway. Is that 165 feet across? The one next to the cul-de-sac?
Number 10? Yeah, all the lots should meet minimum standards.
There's just no dimension, and couldn't tell if that was actually one.
Yeah, that's true.
So this would be something that the planning commission approves. It's not a recommendation to the church board.
Oh, okay.
That open space that you've got?
Yep.
Is there gonna be a conservation easement that will preserve the open space? As opposed to-
No, there's no intent to have a conservation easement on the open space. It's general common element to the condo association. So it's sort of collectively owned by everyone.
Okay.
Commissioner Brown, if this were a PUD where they're required to do a certain amount of open space, then we would typically require them to put that in an open space, an easement or agreement, but since it's just kind of a goodwill offering of the development,
Mhm.
then we wouldn't.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I'll move to approve, the final site condominium, plan, the Meadow Woods, parcel 20-275-000-02. And then, taking into all, accounts of the, conditions as stated in the memo. Yes, if that's what it is, that's what it
This
is.
doesn't,
Yeah.
making sure.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
I'll support.
Any further discussion or? No? All right. I guess we'll take a vote.
You want a roll call?
I think we do a roll call vote, yeah.
Okay, Mr. Butler?
Yep.
Mr. Brown? Mr. Helmut?
Rick, yes.
Helmut, sorry. Mr. Eiley?
Yes.
Mr. Sanderson, not here. Webster, yes. Mr. McFadden? Yes.
All right.
Unanimous.
Yes, thank you. Okay, then. All right, so that's all our old business. Move on to communications, so correspondence.
Yeah, correspondence, you had two items, and email received from Andrew Malaki today. Thank you. You have it all on your desk. It's related to what you heard, Joe share about the moratorium and the desire that new stairway systems or repairs, replacement of existing stair systems be excluded from the moratorium. So that was the intent of that comment. We also had a letter from Doug and Shar Manning related to their concern about construction in the high-risk erosion areas along the lake shore. They recognize that residents have the right to improve and enjoy their property. And they believe there are interests that are shared among everyone to preserve and protect the environment with reasonable zoning ordinances. So they share a concern about potential harm and damages to neighboring properties, especially with construction within the high-risk erosion areas. They invite you to drive Lakeshore Drive to see some of the examples and what's happening over there. They support the township's desire to evaluate and strengthen regulations and ordinances to provide some additional oversight. And they're here tonight, so we have the second public comment period as well. So those are in your packet.
Feel like we'll probably circle back to these when we discuss it. We did the meeting. The planning commissioner comments, none?
Well, I have one, I spoke with, the township of Chickamauga. And I have a copy of their ordinance, that I'm going to give to John, because, well, first of all, what Chickamauga told me is I spoke to both Kelly Largent, their zoning administrator, And, she told me that I had to speak to the supervisor because concerning, revetments and protection of the lake, they've got approximately 7 miles of Lake Michigan shoreline that, under their jurisdiction. And they have a very strict, ordinance concerning, what people can use to protect against erosion. And it's basically either sandbags or sand tubes, which, by themselves can fall apart and then be pulled out. Then you're just left with sand, which isn't the same problem, doesn't present the same issues and problems that, steel seawalls, rocks, boulders, present. When I spoke to, David Bunt, the supervisor, he administers that part of the ordinance himself. He does not turn that over to the zoning administrator. And he also admitted to me that, even though it was brought up 2 years ago in that seminar, that, they are the only township in the state of Michigan who have gone ahead and done this. But what I'm thinking is I have that issue I'm concerned with. And then, I'm also concerned that since we've had an election, in the city of Saugatuck, and it doesn't look like short-term rentals are gonna come back anytime soon. I'm concerned that developers who can no longer build those in the city might be looking elsewhere. And, we're sitting right next door. We don't have a problem, but it might not be a bad idea to look at it now before it becomes a problem.
I'm sorry, what problem?
The short-term rentals. And yeah, since they're now stopped in the city of Saugatuck, if you want to develop any property with short-term rentals, you're gonna, at least for the foreseeable future in the city of Saugatuck, that's not gonna happen there. So we're next door. I don't want to see it become a problem here, but we serve to advise the township board. I'd be kind of curious to see which issue the township board is more concerned with. And wants to develop, look to coming up with solutions before they become problems. So we have, basically the armoring of the shoreline, which, comes up again with the lakeshore overlay. And or short-term rentals, I did pick up, print off, Muskegon just went through a large battle. And they've adopted a short-term rental overlay district. And we probably can go up and down the shoreline to see what other people have done. But I guess I'd like to ask the township board, what interests you? If you're not interested in either, well, tell us, and we won't vote months on end.
I'm happy to respond. But at our board meeting last week, there were some members of the public that expressed exactly what you just said, relative to short-term rentals. Like get out in front of it before it becomes a problem. So we heard that, we've heard that. The Chickaming, I'm glad you brought that up because I remember looking into that ordinance a couple of years ago. So I don't know what the process would be, but I think that's a very valid.
Well, and I did,
model for us to look into.
and I did ask him, has anybody challenged it?
Right.
And I think probably because the water levels have been going down, nobody has challenged it. My concern is,
But it's cyclical.
when the water levels decide to change their mind
That
and
comes back.
start going back up, if you're telling somebody with a multi-million-dollar home on Lake Michigan that there are certain things he can't do to protect his home, we might get some automatic feedback. So I think we should have the discussion now while the water's low and come to a resolution of how we're going to respond to that. Because it's much easier to talk about it when you have beaches in front of you versus 6-foot rollers.
And I would agree with that thought, because as we all know, the levels are cyclical. they're gonna come back, they're gonna go down again. And I think it dovetails into our discussion on the high erosion district, so
Anyway,
I think that's a good.
I'll share it
note
with
for
you and I'll,
This commission to bear in mind for
yeah, and then-
future deliberation.
and find out what the appetite is for shows on high.
So you'll circle back to that. What's the short-term rental part?
Okay, well, I think it's up there.
This question.
Yeah. Well, I think we need to agree, do we make that an agenda item in the future, and what is the intention? If you're proposing, a cap like the city did, I think that's an action of the board. But, I mean, and I've had people call me about this, not many. Mainly in reaction to what has happened in the city of Saugatuck. And I'm honest with them and said, we get very little, negative feedback. A few years ago, we would get calls about, there was a house next door, but they had 20 people there and the fire department's only said they can have 10. That is kind of quieted down. Doesn't mean it won't come back.
Yeah, I mean,
But again, as I said to this constituent, this resident, I said, but you have to remember, the township has 300 parcels, properties. What did I say? 3,000. The city has maybe 600. So it's a different situation. Doesn't mean we shouldn't be looking at it, but
no, but I'm thinking like, if I look over at Silver Lake, if a number of those homes were available for short-term rentals.
Right.
And then you had people, running their boats all through the day. Skiing where people normally don't ski, wakes, parties. Was that you?
I didn't bring it up,
But anyway, so, yeah, I mean, there are areas where it quickly could become an issue. So anyways, I'll be glad to show township board.
yeah, well, that's.
Thank you. Any other comments? No?
Yeah, I've got a couple.
Okay.
First off, you probably know this, but just last Tuesday was the election. And I want to commend our outgoing clerk, Rebecca Israels. We had pretty much a flawless election with 9 days of early voting. We had record numbers of mail-in votes. We had over 80, I think we hit almost 90% turnout, which is incredible. So she's she did not run again. She's leading with a very high standard. And I wanted to commend you for that. As you know, your 5 friendly Saugatuck Township board members were all reelected. They were unopposed, but we still got votes. I did want to mention for the last several months, the board has been working with a consultant that used to be the head of the Michigan Township Association. It's called Government Excellence, and it's an attempt to codify job descriptions for the board members, for the planning commission members, for the manager. It's pretty exhaustive. It's almost done, his final presentation to us. We're meeting on December 17th to hear all this. But one thing that hit me was, and it includes descriptions of, what's planning commissioner responsible for doing? How are they oriented when they join the board? I don't know if you had any orientation, but they're supposed to. And so we're going to hopefully tighten those kind of things up so it's more clear what's expected and what the protocols are. I don't know if you shared any of this when you joined the board, because 2 years ago, we updated our bylaws and rules of procedure. Do you have that? Yeah, you might have already had it, but I'm just saying, we need to be tighter with all our commissions and all our board responsibilities. And I know everyone should be getting all the Michigan Association of Planner magazines and notices at home. In this government excellence, it's pretty strong, and you've heard me talk about this before. Planning commissioners, when they're interviewed, they always say yes, and they are committed to semi-regular training. And I'm not sure if any of us have done any training in the last 2 years, so.
Yeah, we had the gentleman from for site plan.
We have the group board with the city of Saugatuck.
Yes, so We've had some training.
True, but there's a lot of trainings.
Oh, no, I know,
I know.
I'm just saying that your comment in regards to the last 2 years, is that
Yeah.
accurate?
Good, I stand corrected.
I've done 4. I think I've done 3 or 4.
Okay, that's fabulous, good, you could be our role model, so I'm just throwing that out. So we're looking at those kind of things, so bear that in mind, and those are my comments.
Thank you. All right, I think that's everything. And now you wanna go move on to the.
Township board, sure, yeah, so yes, as I mentioned earlier, the township board met last week. Couple appointments were made, we reappointed trustee Aldridge to the fire district board, this is for a 6-year term. And we made a new appointment to, there's a community recreation board, which hasn't been that active, but we expect it to be more active now with a lot of support from the school system. And we appointed Ashley Little Ray to that board. We had a presentation from the Allegan County Legal Center, and we watched a video submitted by some residents on the issue of Lakeshore Drive erosion and how some of the construction that's already happened has perhaps impacted neighbors' foundations. We voted on a Blue Star Highway sidewalk proposal. Actually, we reviewed a plan to install a sidewalk from Blue Star Highway along Blue Star from Old Allegan Road to 134th Avenue. But we decided to table that till next month for a variety of reasons. One of which, I forgot to mention in the election, our new township clerk is a familiar name, Cindy Osmond. Cindy had been on the board a couple years ago and then resigned to take a staff position. And now she's gone back into the elected world. She will now be the elected clerk. Lori Babinski will continue to serve as her deputy clerk. And that was one of the reasons I suggested tabling it, to get her input from her many years doing planning and zoning in the city. High risk erosion, there was a discussion, not a vote, about a possible overlay district along Lakeshore Drive that would include a 6-month moratorium, which we're all well aware of on new construction and building permits. We agreed to await further action or recommendation from the planning commission. This item kind of came in last minute, and we were presented with a draft resolution at the meeting, which obviously no one had time to review study, so we just thought it'd make a little more sense to be more transparent and also let this commission weigh in as well. The next item on here I've already mentioned. These are the highlights. We're gonna meet again December 11th, right here, 6 p.m. Any questions on board actions? Thank you, sir.
All right, maybe at this point, I'll turn it over to Lynette.
All right, thank you. Just a couple things before we talk about Lakeshore. First, I recall, with the election of Cindy, Leon Lawrence is our new, building inspector and is overseeing the building department. If you haven't stopped in to meet Leon, please do so. He's doing a fantastic job. It's been great to work with him, really quick at learning. He has a strong background in construction, and he's doing a great job with enforcement items. So, I guess I just wanted to call that out, and if you haven't met him, to stop in. And then, as you all know, I want to thank you. We do have a special meeting on Tuesday at 9 a.m. There's one agenda item, and that's a final site condominium review for North Shore. You looked at the preliminary at the October meeting. We won't be talking about the Lakeshore, anything with the Lakeshore. It's strictly for the purpose of that final site condominium project. Thank you, Morgan, for getting those emails out and for helping to make sure we had a quorum and getting all that together. And thanks all of you for responding quickly. Okay, moving on to the Lakeshore overlay. You do have moratorium language in front of you. That would be an action of the township board. The moratorium language applies to parcels that are on the west side of Lakeshore Drive. from the municipal boundaries of Douglas down to Gandy Township. The intent is not to make life difficult for anyone over there. It was simply, we were recognizing that we have this time with the holiday season and slow construction and winter months where we typically don't see a lot of requests for stairs and other permits happening along the lake shore. So we actually thought this was a good time that wouldn't cause a lot of inconvenience for people. We did not want that to be the case. And the point of this moratorium, and we're hoping it doesn't last 6 months, right? It's just really, they typically are in 6, 9, 12-month increments. The purpose is for us to have the time to do the research with Chickaming Township and the ordinance, the hard armoring ordinance that was mentioned at the last meeting. We want to make sure that we have time to discuss this overlay. And we want to make sure that we're not rushed and seeing an influx of permits coming in, you know, to skirt around things that we want to have time to discuss and perhaps regulate. So that is the intent of this. It was not, again, to cause an inconvenience, and certainly the request to allow repair, replacement of stairs. You know, seems reasonable. Yes, that's where I'll leave it.
So as written in this draft here, is it clear that that would exclude rebuilding stairways or new stairs?
No.
So that would have to.
Yes, we can ask our township attorney to add the language in. I mean, I think there's a discussion to be had about repair and replacement, like in kind, like for like, what is there today versus new stairs. Because some of what we're looking at are the setbacks for construction, including where stairs or driveways could locate, because of the sandy soils and the excavation. So, new stairs would be different than repair and replace. So I had an email, actually, Andrew, I had sent you an email asking for clarification and haven't heard back yet on that.
Do you guys have stairs already? You must already have stairs in place that.
We do, by speaker, yeah, we do have stairs, I think. Though. When you're rebuilding stairs to accommodate new, regulations as far as landings and steepness and tread widths, like. You're going to have to deviate a little bit from the existing path unless you're doing a pure replacement only. So if you want to accommodate, you know, putting in landings, you would be doing something slightly different. I think for the importance of this issue, I'm not sure how, as I understand, like excavation work can be problematic, but if you're not excavating, you're only putting in post holes or helical piles into the block. You're not, you know, changing the landscape. So I don't quite understand why a new set of steps couldn't go in. I mean, in our case, it's in the existing spot, but I think there are plenty of other people too that would be putting in stairs where you don't require tree clearing or excavation, you're just putting in stairs. And I don't know why you would want to limit someone from doing that. That doesn't seem to be the problem at hand.
I mean, I think we're trying to look at the immediate concerns, something that we know is up in front. We're, like you said, we're hoping that this moratorium doesn't last very long, so.
Correct, yeah.
I don't know how many proposed new stairs you have in front of us, but no. And then I'm curious too, is, I mean, I envision stairs and I see exactly what, I mean, I think I understand what they're saying, but I also don't quite know what like the concerns in your letter, from Doug and Char Manning. I haven't been down Lakeshore Drive to see, you know, what those are, but I'm assuming they're much bigger projects and, they have to do with maybe, you know, building homes and retaining walls and, you know, larger scale, construction projects. I'm thinking that's what that letter is addressing.
Do you feel like speaking?
Sure, I mean, I think you're right, that our particular concern is a larger scale issue. The bigger concern, I mean, what's happened next to us is happened, and we're not gonna undo that. I guess the
What
concern,
was that? What is?
the owners of the property to the north of us dug out back from the bluff 100 feet, digging down 30 feet to lower their bluff level of their half of their piece of property. And that created bankments on, essentially bluffs on the north face of our property that's eroding. And is now jeopardizing our land. And, you know, that's, you know, we're working with Eagle to try to get them to address that and hopefully remedy that. Our concern, and then this has happened also a couple other places along the lake shore, is that there be some regulations so that this doesn't become the norm. And there'll be 5 other properties where a similar severe revetment has taken place. And some people do, I don't know your stairs, but some people do carve out a revetment to, you know, when they do put in stairs, which is reasonable in many cases. But again, you know, should that be right up to the property line? Right now, it can be right up to the property line. And is that reasonable, or does that jeopardize, you know, the neighbors and their right to enjoy their property and preserve their property? So it's really just a question of, you know, can there be a standard for our community that, you know, we don't see massive destruction on many parcels along the lake shore? I mean, what's happened to us, you know, has happened, and it is what it is, but can we learn a lesson from that we take and,
I was just curious on the scale of the construction we were talking about in the letter. That's, and I think
it's enormous.
We could send you the link to that video too.
I couldn't remember if planning commissioners have all seen the Kirkcaldy video. Board watch.
I don't have it anymore.
We don't have it.
We could definitely get that shared.
Yeah, well, share with you guys.
We saw it.
Oh, yeah, here.
Yeah. And it's about housing projects and drastically changing the architecture of the building.
Yeah, the terrain is.
And those are 2 rentals too.
Of course they are.
There you go. So, everything's connected. Yeah, but no, you definitely watch it. It's very compelling.
Question in regards to, the moratorium and what you're proposing is the amendment. So I'm looking at both of them. I'm also looking at the document you're given for common areas
Oh, yeah.
and high erosion, and one thing can we be more restrictive than what's here, or do we follow? You know, I know we talked about that in regard to the critical dunes, we couldn't be more restrictive.
Right, we can be.
We can be more restrictive for the high erosion area, okay?
I guess I still feel like we don't have, is there a potential to allow the repair and replacement within the same kind of foundation area during the moratorium versus new?
Well, that's a sort of a technical question, but it certainly doesn't require a seawall, a revetment, excavating or tree clearing. So I think there could be a delineation from putting in steps versus steps with a revetment and excavation. They could come together, but they don't have to. So someone may want to just do one and not the other. So why exclude it?
So if you're putting in steps in either by driving the boat or putting in boats, and you're not changing the topography of the land, that might be like the circumstance. And it sounds like you're the only guy that's crazy enough to try to steps in the winter anyway.
That's when everyone does it.
Yeah.
It's like break ground right in the spring, so you have them by summer. I would expect you don't have any permits now, but with the beach coming back, I bet you'll have several requests for permits between now and next summer, given the lake levels.
Well, hopefully, we will be able, the township will be able to look at this fairly quickly and not make it a 6-month. But if we can make an exception for, if you're not changing the topography, probably not.
I guess my only concern would be, because we're, probably one of the things we're gonna address is the setback from how close you are to the property line. And so if you're constructing new, then you may run into an issue with, what the setback's going to be versus what it, it sounds like there isn't one now.
Yeah, the way that we're looking at having setbacks for those items moving forward would be the same setbacks that we would have for a building. So, I mean, perhaps we can talk to our attorney if there's a way to allow the new that don't have, the excavation and the tree clearing and the revetment and are within the building setbacks for the parcel, that might be okay.
Are you building a
And
new
no
roof?
roof, right, they can't have
Are
a
they
roof.
existing?
Yeah, I mean, our case is right in the same location, which is hundreds of feet from the property line.
But it goes beyond that. I mean, why create an unnecessary hardship for property owners that pay a lot of taxes to this township to prevent them from putting a stairway down to Lake Michigan, when you don't need to have that provision in this moratorium? Because what if it does go 6 months? Because you're getting input and whatever. Now, some property owner that wants to put in a new set of stairs isn't really going to be able to apply for a permit, why the contractor, until they can comply with your new ordinance. That very well may push them into June, July, or August before they can even get the stairway put in. I'd ask you to take a second look.
I think
That's a stairway, it's a stairway, it's not a building, it's not an excavation,
That's what we're
I mean,
doing.
if you gotta cut a couple trees to get your stairway down, I mean, are you?
I think we're
That's
concurring.
what we're doing.
Yeah.
What's that?
I think we're concurring with that.
Well,
We're not, yeah.
well, I'm sure in the comments that I was getting from Lene, it was more geared towards replacement, existing, how far are you gonna extend out? If you're looking at accepting new ones, I'm all for it. All right, that's
So
what.
that's your issue
conversation.
Are new ones excluded or are they in?
But I think we're talking about new ones
Right.
can go in, but having, if they don't have, if they're not, if there's not excavation or tree clearing or. And that if they're within the setbacks, the building setbacks.
But new ones have to comply with the building code, regardless of what the old ones were. 100 years ago.
Sure, yes,
So it might be a longer run.
yeah, like Andrew was saying, the different tread and the run.
Right.
The landing.
So where would you put that within your moratorium, Renee?
That would be our attorney would do that.
Yeah, thank you. So,
Well,
So-
that was.
so,
He did this one really quickly.
so will this then now the moratorium will come back to us?
No,
No, go straight to the board.
It goes straight to the board.
Yeah, what the
Without
board was
seeing that
asking for.
exception, without having a discussion about that exception?
no, we need to get it to the board with that exception language.
So if it's done for the December meeting, just touch base with them, including me. Because
Well, I have an issue with that in regards to us as a board.
It's a township board resolution.
what we decided last week was we wanted the planning commission to weigh in. It was a brand new issue for us. And we had no time to review the initial draft. So we were asking for feedback from the commission.
But you didn't have to.
Huh?
But you didn't have to.
No, I mean, I wanted it, I just thought that made sense. I think that's what we're doing now.
I have difficulty, putting my name onto anything that I have not read in this entirety. I have a little bit of problem with that, so that's my thing, you know, is that and I'm in favor, I'm listening to everything, I'm in favor of it. But and actually see it in written word, and then you're going to make the recommendations, like, okay, what is it, what are we really saying, and how, are we clear on what we're saying? And I know that I understand that that's just a recommendation, but if we're gonna take a vote on it,
No, there's no voting.
Wait,
This is just, we're just talking about the idea of a temporary moratorium.
and which I agree with.
To the township board, that's all we're talking about, we're not writing any ordinance language right
No,
now.
no, I understand that, but if you've given me, well, that's.
No, but the revised resolution,
That's all right, you guys.
No,
I,
no,
you know,
Denise,
I'm
this is
really, no, I'm really.
you can read it as soon as it's done and it's gonna be in the
You,
board
you bring
packet.
it, you bring it to us as a planning commission, and that you want us to read it, and we want to then make that recommendation to the planning. Or to the board, and now we're not seeing a complete resolution. So that's my only issue, that's
You
my.
will see it days before it comes to the board for a vote. So as it comes out, you can read it.
Anybody else have?
You can come to the board meeting and make comment if you disagree with any of the wording. Right?
I understand what you're
I'm
saying.
done, I'm just giving you my opinion.
Are there any other offerings to the moratorium? So then you have what you need,
I
right?
don't know.
Yeah.
We were just asking for feedback. We got it.
It might be back.
We didn't
I
have-
think it might be back.
We did not have to do that.
Are you done?
I'm pleased that this is what transpired.
So at this point, I'll open it up to the second public comment period. There's anyone in the audience or on Zoom? No. All right, so I'll close that second public comment, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. Second.
I'll support.
Support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. That's a record.